Okay, welcome guys. Another week, and as promised, we will be looking at the Amazon Web Service this week. If you remember last time, we discussed and did a hands-on on the Azure cloud platform, and also the services that you know uh, were provided using that platform. So today we'll be talking about Amazon Web Service and just a brief introduction to Amazon Web Service. Just like Azure, they are both cloud platforms. The only difference is that they are um, solutions from different organizations. Azure being from Microsoft and the web service, Amazon Web Service from Amazon. Okay. All right. So we're just gonna go into the introduction, and then just give you a brief insight on the Amazon Web Service. Right. Right now, when it comes to cloud computing in general, Amazon Web Service is the leading cloud services provider globally. I would say, in terms of providing cloud-based services only. But in terms of infrastructure and integration with your infrastructure, then Azure still takes it because Azure has a um, connection with Microsoft 365. They're highly integrated. But in terms of just using cloud services for your specific needs or your company's needs, Amazon Web Service is the leading cloud service provider, and they provide a vast array of businesses across different sectors, powering their solutions on the cloud. Okay, AWS offers an extensive suite of cloud services, similarly to Azure, which we're going to take a look later, and that ranges from computing power and storage options to databases, machine learning, ensuring scalability, flexibility, and reliability. And I'd just like to put it out there that it's pretty similar to Azure. Okay, most of the services that, or the major services that you'd be able to use on Azure platform, you can also get them on the Amazon Web Service, just in a different way, in a different name, and a different way to set them up. Okay, but they're pretty much the same if you know the fundamentals. Um, so the next thing we're going to do is just look at the basic terminologies and AWS Cloud Basics. And one of the things that I'd like to touch on are the AWS Cloud Fundamentals and the global infrastructure, as we say it. AWS global infrastructure spans across 81 availability zones within 25 geographical regions. Okay, with plans for 21 more availability zones and 7 more AWS regions. So I just explained that. So in the case where you want to set up an organization, or as an organization, you have your company set up in Nigeria. Well, we don't have AWS doesn't have a region in Nigeria. So let's just say you set up your region in the UK, for instance, which is Europe. You want your organization and everything, your infrastructure, to be majorly there. Then you can set up your account to that specific region. But if your company is a conglomerate and you have branches in different regions, and you want to specifically separate those regions in a way of the infrastructure, but still in the same account, you can always create more setups in different regions using the same accounts, which we're going to talk about once we go into it further and we do the hands-on. Now, they also have something called the service models, just as I explained in the Azure training. Understanding AWS approach to infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, which is the major models that cloud computing provides, or the platforms provides. And one of the major things is the EC2, which provides a scalable computing capacity. And just so you're not confused, EC2 is the terminology that we use in AWS, which is basically a virtual machine. Okay, in Azure, we simply call it a virtual machine, which is a VM. But in AWS, they use the term EC2, which is an instance, which we're going to take a look at and also create one on the Anthem, during the Anthem. Okay, we have the Elastic Beanstalk, which offers quick deployment and management of applications. That's another service on AWS. And also a work mail, which delivers managed email and calendaring services. So just similar to Azure, where you can integrate Microsoft 365 Exchange for your emails and all of that. AWS has something similar, which is the, SES for emails, where you can set up email technology on there. It's not really more of an enterprise, but it's something you can set up for services that you have on AWS. Okay. Some of the key terminologies I've mentioned earlier is the EC2, which are for virtual servers, as I mentioned earlier. The S3, which is when we're talking about storages. And we have Lambda for serverless computing, CloudWatch for monitoring, and so on and so forth. We're going to, take a look at those services later on as we go. And let's look, dive into some of the features that we have. The core features of AWS, similarly to Azure, is the computing, the storage, and also the networking, which work hand in hand depending on what service you're trying to set up. When we talk about the computing feature, we're looking at exploring EC2, providing resizable computing capacity for for virtually any workload, and we're talking about Lambda for serverless technologies, also enabling you to run code without provision in service, which you can say information as a code, basically. And Lambda is a term that we use on AWS. It's the service that allows you to code, manage your infrastructure. But in this case, you can decide to use something like Cloud Shell or something different, or like Terraform entirely, if you're aware of Terraform. You can also use that. In Azure, we can also use Terraform and PowerShell. So it's basically similar. Okay, it's just a way to use code to manage your infrastructure on the cloud. And when we're talking about storage, like I mentioned earlier, we discovered the S3, which is the terminology used in AWS for storages, and it's a scalable storage solution alongside the RDS for relational databases and DynamoDB, or whatever NoSQL database services that you are using or you want to utilize. And then we talk about networking, because everything is connected. And as I've stated in the past training, because you're working on the cloud, you still need to be aware of what kind of networking setup you want to have. So it's very similar to if you are working on premise in an office. Okay, you still need to understand the basic networking attributes and how to set them up so you can do the same thing on the cloud. And AWS allows you to do that, and they utilize virtual private cloud, which is VPCs, which controls majorly all the networking side of things on AWS, which allows you to provision a locally isolated section of AWS cloud to launch AWS resources on a separate virtual network. Okay, you can have multiple VPCs, which means you can have multiple networks, depending on what you want to set up, or if you want to separate certain services from each other, or if you are setting up accounts in different regions, as I mentioned earlier, you can utilize that as well. Okay. And then the next thing to talk about mainly is how to set up your AWS account, because a lot of this is going to be hands-on today. We're going to look at how to set it up, how to start your career, pretty much how to get your hands on what services, how to go about it, how to access the management console. So we'll be looking at that today. And the first step, as always, is to create an account, a free tier account, mind you, because this is for training. And I think the free tier account allows you to have think about a year or 6 months access to AWS, so you can get hands-on while you practice, and just learn further on the services, and also prepare yourself for the fundamental exam, which is the cloud practitioner exam, which I'm sure I provided the links to way earlier before the trainings began. Okay, so the first step is to create an AWS account, and you can use the link here which will provide to you as well, which is fine. If you click the link in the PowerPoint or already provided, it will take you to a page like this. Okay, this is the AWS Amazon page where you can create a free account to have hands-on experience with the AWS platform, products, and services. All right, so we can proceed to create this account. Just click on create free account, and it will bring you to a page where you will. I'm already um, signed in, so I'm just gonna open the free account. So just to show you what to do there. One moment. There we go. So you create a free account and it will take you to a page where you're supposed to sign up. Okay. So here you will sign up for AWS. What you do is enter your email. Once you enter your email, you give it a name. It could be your name, it could be, a test name, whatever name, and then you verify your email address. Okay. Once it's verified, then you would be able to, complete the setup, and you would be required to add your debit card. Okay, just like similarly to Azure and similarly to Microsoft 365, they will not take any money, but do remember to either cancel once you signed in. Um, it would ask you to set that up. Once you fully done, then you would be able to get to a page like this. Okay, if you successfully sign up, you would be able to access the management console here. It will look like this. Okay, if you have any issues signing up, you can send a chat or a message, and we can always check that and assist you further on that. But it's pretty straightforward. Enter your email, verify your email address, complete the sign up with your debit card, and yeah, you should sign up for the free tier. Okay. All right. Now, if you successfully signed up, you'd be introduced into a page like this. This is what we call the AWS Management Console. And if you're aware, it's kind of similar to the Azure Management Console, okay, or the Azure portal, right? But it's similar, but it's different. Okay, so this is the AWS, and I mentioned earlier that I was going to show you the services. So at the top right here, or top left, you would see something called services. If we click on this, it will automatically bring us to all the services that are provided by AWS. Okay, all the services. So there's a whole lot of service that you can see here. It includes everything, to be honest. And we're going to look at some of them, or the most basic ones, as we go. Let's use this one. View all services. Here we go. All right, so this is much better. So this will give you a detailed list of all the services that are provided by AWS. All right, this service is very similar to Azure, like I showed you on the Azure portal. Yeah, a lot of the services are named something else, but they are quite similar in what they do. Each is different or specific to each platform. Okay, and as I mentioned, EC2 is what we call a VM in Azure. In AWS, we call it EC2 instances, and we're going to look at that. But the first thing I want us to touch on is the identity access management, because that's very important. If you are or you're working for an organization and you create an AWS account for them, or if they have an AWS account already, which they use for their infrastructure, one of the things that they would do is to give you a zero, using the zero access policy. They give you an account which has a limited role to what they hired you for specifically. Okay, and we're going to take a look at that. That's the first thing we're going to take a look at, and you can go there by simply either searching for it. Okay, it's very easy. You would see the um, global search button here, where you can search for identity, and it'll bring up all the services that you that you require. Okay. In this case, we want to go to the Identity Access Manager. So you see IAM. Okay. It's also listed here. If you want to just go to click services, you would see under service, under security, identity and compliance, you would see IAM. Okay. That stands for Identity Access Management. So we can just click that and it would take us to that specific service. All right. So I'm going to touch on a few things here so that you can understand how it works. Similarly to Azure or Microsoft 365, you can create users that you want access to the AWS portal. But not just that, you can also restrict the roles and their accesses. Okay, and also enable MFA for whatever um, user account that you create. Now, on the left here, you would see access management. This is where you can create user groups. You can create a different user. You can create a role. What are roles? Roles are pretty much the term that covers your job description. Okay, so if I'm hired to only service or work on EC tools, which are virtual machines, or if I'm only for the networking side of things, you can give me a role that is specific to that or create one. And you already set the policies to allow me access to only the services that I need.